Hello everyone and welcome to another edition of Let's Paint a Mini. So we're moving on to something a little bit different, something that I haven't done for the channel yet here. I'm looking at a miniature from that Massive Darkness board game. Apparently it's a board game from a really big board game company I guess it's a really popular game. Well, anyway, I went out and I bought one of these like kind of monster expansions. This Heroes and Monsters set, Sorcerers versus Lord Tusk something or other. Well, anyway, I thought that we would be looking at this particular hero right here. This is Sarah, I guess is the character's name. And the thing that we're doing differently today is that we're actually starting with a base coat of gray instead of black. I'm doing that actually at the request of a friend of mine named James, who he does a lot of his base coats with white and gray instead of black, and it just tends to brighten up your miniatures quite a bit. I'm still not a huge fan of gray base coats, and I'll get into why whenever we start actually doing the miniature, but I thought that we would do this, and I thought that we would just kind of do the paint scheme that would be pretty similar to the actual art of the character, so kind of really polished white, silver, gold, and then blue. And I think the first thing that I'm going to start with is there's actually a little tiny bit of skin showing in that helmet. You can kind of see her eyes a little bit too, so I figured that we would start with that, because it's always best to start with the low contours of a miniature. So, like I said, the base coat that I did here was actually rainy gray. And now I'm going to move on to this tanned highlight color, and I'm going to use that to just apply a little tiny bit of paint onto that sort of slit in the helmet where her skin is showing. And I think I can get away with using a small-sized Reaper round brush here. Now the slit is very tiny, so you're probably going to get some paint onto the helmet when you do this. That's okay, don't panic. Just do your best. If you want, you can use, you know, one of those little itty-bitty, teeny-tiny micro detail brushes, which I'll use when we do the eyes. But for now, I think I'll just use this brush, and I think it'll be fine. There we go. That just kind of got the skin underneath her helmet there a little bit. And I didn't even get very much paint onto the helmet itself, so I think that worked out. Okay, rinse off that brush. Alright, and then like I said, I think we're going to move on to the eyes after that. So I'm going to use this pure white color. The label is faded off, but this is pure white. Again, don't really need that much paint at all. Like I said, I'm going to use this little itty-bitty, teeny-tiny 30-gauge micro detail round brush here. And I'm just going to dab the eyes really carefully. There we go, just got a little bit there. And then I'm going to touch those eyes up just a little tiny bit with some pure black. So just pure black here. So I was kind of talking about this in the last video that I was doing, where I was painting Emperor Palpatine from Star Wars Imperial Assault. It's really hard to do eye colors for miniatures just because eyes are so small. And if you really want those eyes to pop out, it's usually best to just do, you know, a single little tiny dot of black. Because if you use like blue or green or something like that, it's just hard to make it stand out with the white. There you go. Her eyes are really tiny, but you can kind of see them there. So she's got some eyes now. All right. Okay. Now we messed with the helmet and the face and all that stuff. Let's move on to the big stuff. Oh, what do I want to start with? I'll tell you what, let's get right into that armor. So I'm going to use this honed steel color here. And I think that with this gray color, or like this gray base coat that I was using, I think this would normally be this color, which would normally be kind of like a cold steel color with black. I think that with this gray, it's going to be more of that sort of like polished silver kind of look here. I think that this is like kind of white, but I kind of want it to be at least a little bit metallic. So let's use this this honed steel here, and with this gray, I think that should make it still be nice and bright. Oh, and I didn't say this. I'm sorry. I'm using a Citadel dry brush here. So with dry brushing, you want to load up some paint onto the brush, but you actually want to wipe off most of it. Because the whole thing about dry brushing is that you actually want to have a very little amount of paint onto the brush. It just makes it so that whenever you are painting, all you're really painting are the high contours of the areas that you're painting, and the low contours will stay that base color. And we want those low contours to stay gray here. Okay, well, I'm gonna need to get at some more paint actually. Alright, I'm gonna do the shield here too. I'm gonna do the same with the sword here. Alright, so that just gives all of her armor a really nice, really bright, silvery sheen there. Okay, so let's move on. I think the next thing that I'm gonna do, tell you what, let's do her hair next. Now, if we look at the illustration that she has, on the little card here, she's got nice bright brown hair. So I'm going to use a base coat of this earth brown color here. All right, I'm going to use a small-sized Reaper round brush here. This is just a 0-scale round brush. And I'm just going to take your time with painting the hair on here. Alright, so at this point you can kind of see, this is kind of one of the reasons why I'm not a huge fan, to be honest, of gray base coats, is because, you see how there are kind of little tiny, it might be kind of hard to tell here, but there are little tiny bits of like kind of gray in the really, really deep contours separating different like pieces, separating the armor, separating the hair, and it's hard to distribute. It's hard to separate the colors exactly evenly. And usually, if you use a base coat of black and you just leave those kind of like, deep contours as black, it looks a lot more natural and it doesn't quite look as weird or off-putting. Now, if you're really, really good and you've got a really steady hand, it's not really a huge issue for you. But for me, call me a lazy painter, I guess. But I kind of, am okay with just doing really basic things and all that kind of stuff. And yeah, sometimes having to paint the really deep contours of a miniature can kind of start to muddy your colors a little bit. When you start doing that, you risk getting paint onto other surfaces that aren't supposed to be there. So like here, if I really wanted to get in between, the hair and the armor right here, I could risk getting some brown onto the armor, and then if I try to go over the armor with silver later on, I risk getting silver onto the hair. And usually if I just kind of leave that really deep contour black, then it looks a lot more naturally lit, looks a lot more normal, and not quite as visually distracting. So that's kind of why I tend to do black base coats. But, again, just for the sake of variety, we're doing this to kind of show you what a gray base coat can do for you. All right. So we've got a nice coat of that brown on there. I'm gonna rinse that brush off. All right, and the next thing that I'm gonna do after I completed that layer of earth brown is I'm gonna move on to my very favorite shade of brown here, this leather brown color. I love this shade because it's just so versatile. You can use it for so many different things. You can use it for hair, you can use it for dirt, you can use it for like leather straps, you can use it for hemp sacks. You can use it for so many different things. You can use it for like bone and teeth and like I said, hair and all that stuff, and it's just awesome. Anyway, so I'm gonna be using my my dry brush here again, and I'm just going to really lightly dry brush all of the hair that I just did. One thing about dry brushing is that you see all of her kind of strands of hair coming down and kind of flowing. Whenever you're dry brushing, don't you know, move your brush strokes with the contours, with the lines, with like the hairlines, for example. Instead, go directly against them, because the whole point of dry brushing is that you want to get the high contours to be a brighter color than the low contours. That's why you start with a dark color and then you dry brush a light color over it. And so if you kind of go with the lines, you kind of risk getting paint into the low contours, and you don't want to do that. You just want to do the high points. And so if you go against all the lines, against all the strands like this, then it comes out really nice. Yeah, see, already it's looking good. All right, yeah, that's some nice hair. Look at that, that looks good. Maybe touch up this part underneath her arm just a little bit more. Tell you what, because I was kind of looking over the miniature a little bit more too. Looks like she's got these kind of like pouches or holsters kind of like littered about. She's got one on her back underneath the hair there. Got one on the side here. Let's start with kind of a darker color there. Let's start with this muddy brown. It's a little bit of a darker shade than that earth brown, just a little bit. And we'll use that small brush that I was using. Okay, there we go. So we've got those pouches there. And, you know, in retrospect, actually, I probably should not have done those first. Yeah, before we get any further, actually, I'm gonna go back to the I'm gonna go to the sort of, I don't know what you call it. It's not a cloak. Well, anyway, the sort of tabards hanging from her hips. Let's go ahead and do those, because if you can see here, they actually go right underneath that little pouch right there. And again, usually you want to do the low contours first. Anyway, so let's go ahead and move on. I'm going to use this sapphire blue color. It's a really nice, dark, but also really prominent, really stand out blue color. I'm going to move on to a larger brush, I think. I'm going to move on to a medium-sized 1-scale brush. And like I said, that whole I don't know what you call it. We'll call it cloak for now. Let's just paint the whole cloak. Yeah, here's another thing where it's hard to see on the camera, but the armor piece and the cloak there's just a gray line kind of separating the two of them, and it's hard to coat that gray line without risking getting blue onto the armor, which is what you don't want to do. You hearing that scratching? I think there might be a kitty who locked themselves into a bedroom. I'm gonna go deal with that real quickly. I'll be right back. Okay, we're good. Ms. Louise Belcher just got herself stuck behind the bedroom door, and I honestly don't know how she closed it, but no, she's a sneaky kitty. You might have seen her in my Alien vs. Predator video that I did. She just kind of jumped up right into the middle of my painting space, right as I was painting. No regard for art. All right. Well, that was time-consuming, but I think we've got the cloak thing all done there. That looks pretty good. Okay. I got a little bit of paint under her hair there by accident. That's okay. Tell you what, real quickly, because I forgot about it. While I've got this muddy brown color here, I'm going to go over these shield straps. Alright, and then after you get that sapphire blue on there on the cloak, we're going to move on to a much lighter shade of blue. This is a bottle where the paint color is like faded off, but this is sky blue. It's just a much lighter shade of blue. Alright, we're just going to dry brush that shade of blue over the cloak. Alright, and that's it for that. Okay. Alright, and let's go back to that muddy brown color that we were using before. Give a little bit more paint out here because this has dried since I last looked at it. And let's finish touching up anything else that looked like might have some brown on it. What I'm really thinking right now are the gloves. I think the gloves should be a nice shade of like a leather brown color. So let's do the gloves or the gauntlets or whatever. Alright, and I think that's about all that I want to do with all of that brown there. So I'm going to rinse that brush. Alright, and I think I'm going to use that same earth brown color that I was using earlier. I think I'm going to use that to dry brush all of those gloves and all that. Alright, and I think that'll about do that. Okay. Let's move on to some fun stuff. And to be honest, actually, too, we're almost done. We've really only got some small details, and then we're going to do a layer of varnish. But otherwise, yeah, we're almost done. We're going to move on to a nice gold color. So let's move on to this antique gold. Whoops! I just kind of dropped paint all over the place. That's okay. Yeah, we'll be all right. Okay. And I think the first thing that I want to do is I want to take, just my regular small size brush here. This isn't the micro detailed one, but just the small detailed one. And it looks like all of the sort of like studs, all of the armor studs, are actually that gold color. So let's just dab each of those studs with this gold color. But yeah, just all of the studs, all over the whole miniature. Let's just dab with this gold color. Alright, I think that's it for all of the studs. I wanted to do those first because I wanted to use them while the paint was still really wet. Next, I'll go ahead and cover all of the sort of bits on here that I think are more like complete gold. For example, like the knees here, let's just go ahead and make that whole piece just totally gold. Okay, it looks like the sort of belt buckle thing on here is gold. Alright, these pauldrons. Alright, and then I think the last thing that I want to do as gold is the sort of hilt of the sword here. Alright. And yeah, that'll about do it. I think there's only one more thing that I want to do, and that's that, oh wait. The top of the helmet here has gold on it. Per the picture right there. And the last thing that I'm gonna do, well, actually, not quite. The next thing that I'm gonna do, the second to last thing that I'm going to do, is I'm gonna go ahead and do my my layer of matte varnish over my miniature. Just gonna use kind of an old flat brush here. Now it's kind of hard to tell by this picture, but it almost kind of looks like the shield itself actually has a little bit of blue on it too. So I was just kind of thinking it might be kind of neat to kind of take some metallic blue. So I've just got a random brand here of a metallic blue color here. It doesn't really matter what brand or variety you get here. This is just a cheap bottle that I got at like a craft store for $1 or $2. All right, and then we're just going to kind of do dry brushing, but not quite as lightly. You can be you can kind of soak the brush a little bit more with this blue, and we'll just go ahead and do that over this shield. There we go. That just gives that shield a nice kind of blue color. And then, you know, just to top it all off too. You guys want to see my dog? She's getting all excited. Check it out. What are you doing? What are you doing? Are you excited? Why are you so excited? She's excited because she knows she's going to go outside soon, aren't you? But I'm going to... Well, let me finish this video first, okay? I appreciate that. Thank you. You're a good girl. Oh, hey, come here. Just come here. There you go. Yes. There's a good girl. Just wait a few minutes. All right, so I'm just gonna go back to my my small size brush here. Just gonna do the same thing that we were doing with that gold. Just kind of dabbing each little stud of the shield. And I think after that, I'm gonna call it. I think that that'll be complete. All right. That's it for that shield there. Oh, and one more little tiny thing. I think that the sort of jewel on the top of that helmet there is supposed to be blue as well. So let's just use that metallic blue color. Just do a little poke. And that'll do it. Okay. All right, so that's Sarah from Massive Darkness. It's one of the little extra packs that you can get. It's not the core game itself, but it's just one of the extra characters that you can get. So that's it. If you like this video, go ahead and throw it a like, and if you want to see more videos about miniatures and painting miniatures and nerdy board game hobby stuff, go ahead and subscribe to my channel. If you're interested in seeing any more Massive Darkness miniatures, go ahead and just let me know in the comments below. I'll see what I can maybe find and go ahead and paint for you. So thank you everybody for watching, and we'll see you next time on Let's Paint a Mini. Bye.